take off. And it was a step for me, because I've had a propensity and a tendency to kind of run from ministry, and what the assignment that God has given me. But listen, I'm just in a time in a season in my life where, like, I can't run, and I just come to understand that this is God's process. Sometimes He allows us to go through certain things, to go through the journey, because there's some things He want to break off of us. And I've just been through so many certain things, and I used to have different visions and desires of certain things, but I've come to the place in my life where I realize, like, God bless you, God bless you. I just come to the place where I realize that, hey, you know what, like, all of these other things, like, not saying like I don't want other things, but they're secondary. My focus now is on ministry, because I it's like I've come to a place where I understand the assignment. And listen, sometimes you don't understand the assignment. Sometimes people are around you, and it frustrates you. Situations that you're in your job, you're dealing with family and different type of things, and they frustrate you. But I've come to learn that you got to understand the assignment. You got to have some inkling and idea as to what the end goal is, to what the end game is. And God will show you signs and things that, hey, like, this is gonna be the end, but it's not easy. But on that note, I wanted to drop this nugget on you, because, like, I spend a lot of time, like, meditating. I love quiet time, and it's like when I can meditate, I can tune into, like, the spirit of God and the spiritual. And he gives me some revelation, and sometimes the revelation comes when you're in a place of focus. You're in the right mindset. Like, you're not gonna catch no revelation, you're not gonna catch no peace, you're not going to be able to efficiently launch and do the things that you need to do if you're not in the right mindset, if you're not in the right frame of mind. You have to be in the correct posture, in order for certain things to happen. And I've realized that, like, and if you think about it, sometimes things happen in our lives because, like, we become frustrated with certain things, and we're looking for certain things to happen, and because of our reactiveness in that situation, it causes us to go into a certain posture, a certain pull, a certain push. And I don't know about you, but listen, it's times where I've been on certain jobs, and, like, doors will begin to close, and it's when you start seeing them doors close in your face, and certain things happening, it causes you to push and to move, and sometimes that in essence pushes your faith to another level. But again, what I want to drop on you today is, like, I was swimming around in Matthew chapter 15, and the spirit was just kind of just dealing with me about some things, and the title of this whole broadcast is what comes out of a man. And in Matthew chapter 15, that's like when the Messiah, he was publicly out with his disciples, and the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, they approached him, and they wanted to interview him, and they criticized him. They say, listen, like, why are your disciples not following the tradition of washing your hands? So Jesus jumped down there. He got them together. And listen, that's what I love about the Messiah. Like, the Messiah, even as you read between the lines, and you assess and you analyze, like, his ministry, he will get you together. That's one thing I know that the Messiah will do. He'll get you together. So he got them together, and he basically say, like, listen, you like to twist up the tradition of men and basically override, like, what God is saying and what God wants. And then what he said most significantly when he broke it down to his disciples, as he taught them, because they couldn't understand what he was saying. He said, listen, it's not what goes into a man that defiles a man, but it's what come out of a man that defiles him. And the spirit just was dealing with me, and I started just really thinking and dwelling on that, wow, it's not what goes into you that defiles you. It's not the food that you eat, and the other things, but it's what comes out of you that defiles you. Because he say, listen, out of the abundance of the heart, like, the mouth speaks. But I want us to like dig into that deeper and understand, like listen, like it's about what comes out of you, because what comes out of you is a manifestation of what's inside of you. And listen, you could take that to so many different levels. Like, like what's coming out of you. Are you toxic? Are you negative? Are you, because I encounter a lot of people, they toxic, they negative, they don't speak positivity, they can't see the vision. Why? Because what's coming out of them is defiled. What's coming out of them is not spiritually pure. And I'm not sitting over here preaching about fire and brimstone. I'm not over here talking about the old holiness cliche, oh, you got to live holy. I'm talking about your spirituality, like what's coming out of you, like what's in there. You know what I'm saying? Do you have negativity in there? Do you have doubt in there? Do you have fear in there? You know what I'm saying? Do you have hatred in there? Like what's inside of you? Because God put something great inside of us. He put his Holy Spirit inside of us. He gave us gifts and everything. So listen, like you got to examine what's coming out of you. And let me tell you, what comes out of your mouth or what comes out of you sometimes go far beyond just spoken words. Sometimes it's your gesture. Sometimes it's your negativity that's coming out of you. Sometimes it's your criticism and self-doubt that's coming out of you in certain ways that may not necessarily be verbal. So we got to be mindful and sensitive and understand like where we are spiritually, like where we are on this journey, like where you are in reference to yourself and relationship, because some things are coming out of you and they're pointing to other things that need to be dealt with. And I realized something, like, listen, like you could sit here and ignore these signs and these spiritual things, but some stuff need to be dealt with. Like, listen, like some stuff that's inside of you have to be dealt with. Like I dealt with some things like, and I said this to my spouse yesterday. I say, listen, like I was in a place where I always gave people grace. Like, I would look past things and have understanding for certain things. So I believe in me doing that, it allowed certain people to basically like interpret that as weakness and vulnerability. So, I found myself around people that would just typically take advantage of the fact that I'm a grace giver. So I will always give grace, like to me in my mind. And even to this day, like, listen, if you tell me something, if I know something, I'm going to give you grace. I ain't going to bother you about it. I ain't going to sweat you about it. Like, you know what I'm saying? If it comes to money, I'm going to give you grace. Like people, you know what I'm saying? If I've lent money, like I don't call them. I don't bother them. I don't harass them. But I found that having that posture have created a certain vulnerability where people will take advantage of this. And I found myself dealing with people that weren't necessarily genuine, but because they had their issues and their problems and they wanted to be accepted, and other people wouldn't accept it, but I would accept it, so they would step on me and they would take me for granted. So, it created some complex things within my life and my relationships, and I've had to reevaluate some things. But my point here is what I'm trying to tell you is that, listen, it's some stuff inside of you. You got to examine what's on the inside. You got to examine what's manifesting in your life. You got to manifest like who you hanging around and who you talking to, what's coming out of you, how you're feeling. Because listen, sometimes we can have certain feelings and certain anger and certain issues, and it's coming from a place of things that we need to resolve, that we need to address. And I've learned this, that sometimes when you don't resolve life issues or issues of the heart, they'll grow into bigger things. Like, listen, you can have an issue with your family, with your parents, and listen, you'll find yourself taking that same hatred and plugging it in at work. You'll find yourself taking that same hatred and those same issues and plugging it into your friendship. So now those same type of issues that you haven't resolved, because listen, what's defiled you is what's coming out of you. You speaking hatred, you speaking negativity. So those same things you're gonna start plugging it into different places of your life and cursing yourself. So you got to understand something, like I got to deal with what's on the inside of me. I got to watch and monitor what's coming out of me. I got to watch and monitor my fruit, because I got to be accountable for myself. I got to be accountable for my spiritual growth. I got to watch myself. And listen, that's what the Apostle Paul said. He said this, he said, listen, Examine yourself and see that you in the faith. So I believe as believers, like we don't really take time and examine ourselves. Like, we're not genuine. We don't know how to keep it real. And listen, I know so many people that I talk to in the kingdom. They don't know how to keep it real. Listen, people struggle to keep it real in the kingdom. I'm just gonna be 100 with you, and I just believe because like we've been so influenced and fashioned by church and religion and by what people think. And listen, I'm telling you, like, listen, you got to be gracefully broken. Like, you got to allow the Spirit of God, God bless you. You got to allow the Spirit of God to bring you into a place where you can be transparent. Listen, that's what he say. He said, like, listen, I'm seeking those that will worship me in spirit and in truth. And I feel like in the kingdom, we don't know how to keep it real. We don't know how to keep it 100. We don't know how to be honest about things. And, we don't know how to create a safe space where people can open up and talk and express some of the issues and some of the things that they struggle with. We love to put on a game face and walk into church and lift our hands and run around like we crazy and then come out with the same demons. So again, you gotta examine what's coming out of you because listen, it's not what goes into a man that defiles him. It's what comes out of you. So what is coming out of you? Like, what is your fruit? Like, what is your passion? Is your passion coming out of you? Is love coming out of you? Is character coming out of you? What's really coming out of you? And listen, we don't want to take a self-assessment. We don't like to improve and do better spiritually, and when you really examine yourself, it's like a sign of spiritual growth. Because listen, a lot of us out here, we have problems, but listen, the first step in trying to address a problem is recognizing that you have a problem. And listen, I know so many folk, they walk around like they don't have a problem. Why? Because you don't know how to be honest with yourself. You don't know how to be real. You don't know how to be transparent. You worried about what people say. You worried about what people think. You worried about what people gonna do. You worried about how many followers you gonna lose if you kick it A100. You worried about what people gonna think about you. But listen, you gotta grow past those things and be the most honest, genuine, organic version of yourself. And when you come into that light, into that dimension, God will deal with you. He'll touch you. And listen, I've been in that place. I used to be embarrassed of the things that I did. I used to be embarrassed of the things that I struggled with. But I had to realize in going through, like, listen, I wasn't getting no results. I wasn't catching no breakthrough. Like, things were continuing in a cycle. And listen, I think one of the worst things is when you keep praying about something and you want something good and it's not happening for you. Listen, you got to wake up. And that's when I had to realize, and I just had to open my mouth and start confessing and being transparent with people. Like, hey, listen, I struggle with sexual problems. Like, I struggle with masturbation. I struggle with touching myself. I struggle with sexual stuff. And listen, the process broke me because I realized, like, listen, sometimes you can't wiggle around stuff. Listen, we love wiggling around stuff. We love trying to move around stuff and maneuvering. But no, baby, sometimes you just got to strip naked and be raw. Sometimes you just got to open up, and listen, when you open and when you honest, sometimes you can get mercy. But listen, in the kingdom, we don't know how to be real. We don't know how to be open. We don't know how to be transparent. But listen, I've learned when you posture yourself in those ways, when you're honest, when you're transparent, and it also forces you to be accountable. But listen, you got to be accountable for yourself as a believer. Because first and foremost, you got to answer to the Most High. But again, beloved, these are just some things that, we got to examine. We got to think about because, like, how is God going to keep elevating us? How are we going to build the house of God if, we're not in order and we're not in alignment with his divine plan and his divine purpose? So, it requires us aligning ourselves up and listen. And that's the word. The word says, like, listen, I wish that you would prosper even as your soul prosper. And listen, our souls got to prosper too. We got to grow. We got to be stronger. Like, you can't be struggling with the same stuff you were struggling with 5 years ago. And listen, I know believers, and not to knock anybody, but listen, some folks still struggling with that same stuff from 5 years ago. You still struggling with that same dead, beat up marriage from 5 and 10 years ago. There's something wrong. We stuck. Like, we got to get unstuck. We got to get real around here. We got to be transparent. We got to be honest. We got to stop feeding into all the garbage that's circulating around here and open a safe place where we all can be open, where we all can be transparent, because it's all about faith. And listen, sometimes if you don't step out on faith, if you can't say, well, man, like I'm a struggling alcoholic, I want to go get me a bottle. Sometimes if you can't be open and transparent and step out on faith, like nothing gonna happen. And listen, I realized when I got so frustrated of praying and going back to drinking, of praying and going back to this and that, and nothing was breaking, nothing was happening. Finally, I got sick of it, and I just started saying, I was like, you know what? I struggle with alcohol. I'm struggling. And when I start putting myself in that posture, I realized that God was strengthening me and delivering me. And not only that, but as I was opening my mouth and being transparent, it was not only strengthening me, but it was causing me to be accountable. It was causing me to speak those words. And as I spoke them openly, it held me and pushed me to a different level. I'm like, okay, I can't sit up here, keep falling, going to the liquor store. I can't keep falling, doing the same stuff. And listen, we're all human, but you got to press past your stuff. Listen, you got to press into a realm, into a place, because God's power is in you, where you demonstrate that you can get past certain things. And I know too many believers, and listen, I even know people that's sitting in pulpits, that's some big wigs, that's still struggling with some little stuff. Why? Because you didn't posture yourself properly. Like, what was coming out of you was something that you ignored, that you didn't pay attention to, and you were trying to get somewhere instead of walk through the process. Baby, let me tell you something. You need this process. Because listen, you think you're going to get high and go to the next level, but you don't realize, like, it's some demons, it's some spirits, it's some forces, it's some people, it's some things that's waiting to knock you off your rocker. But God is bringing you through this way. Why? Because he knows you. He knows that, listen, like, it may take a little bit longer because you got to deal with some things. Like, you got to learn how to drop some things. You got to learn how to pick up some things. You got to learn to pay attention to some things. And listen, even me, and I know my gift in the prophetic is sharp, super sharp. But listen, I'm at the place where I ignore things naturally. So God had me in a season now where not only am I looking in the spiritual, but I'm paying attention to the natural things. And listen, God told me that. He said, listen, you can see spiritual all day. Like, I'm a seer of seers, but I don't be paying attention in the natural. So God is telling me now, listen, like, okay, you got the spiritual part of it, but now you got to open your natural eyes, because he said to do what? Watch and pray. And us as believers, we like to be one-sided. And I said this on the prayer line. I know so many people, they want to be in the spirit and be in the prophetic, but as much as you in the prophetic is as much as you got to get up and walk and demonstrate faith, because faith without works is dead faith. And listen, I know too many people that I'm talking to that's calling me that got dead faith. You want to hear a prophetic word. Baby, the prophetic word is to give you comfort and to exhort you. And after you get the word, you got to get up and move by faith. But we got these jokers, they sit up and they want a word. They want to hear a word. They want to hear a word. And they're the most depressed people I know. Why? Because they don't walk by faith. They don't really believe in faith, but they want to hear the prophecies. So you'll keep hearing prophecies and keep catching prophecies, but nothing is birthing. Nothing is activating, because you're sitting down waiting for something. And listen, I'm not knocking prophecy. I'm a prophet. And listen, that's one of my strongest gifts. One of my strongest gifts is prophecy. Like, I see visions openly all day, every day. But listen, I've learned you can't sit up there and wait on no prophecy. You got to move by faith. And listen, faith is an action word. Faith is a verb. You got to get up and move. You got to get up and wait for the direction and for the movement. Notice I say get up, do action, make action. And I'm trying to tell you, this journey right here has been something else. It's been a learning journey. Times I thought I had it together. Times I thought it right. I had it right. God came with another layer. And then he came with another test. And let me tell you something. God will not tempt you. That ain't God. That's Satan. But he'll test you. Listen, God will test you. Why? Because you need to be tested. Because as you're shifting, as you're elevating, it's going to be some things thrown at you. You got to know how to navigate those things. And I said that to my spouse the other day. I say, listen, like, this one got that to say, this one got this to say. I'm like, the old me, I would have took out my spiritual gun and start sniping, shoot. But listen, that ain't what God want me to do. That's not what God wants you to do. So now I'm sitting up here and I've grown. But the old me, listen, I would have licked shots. Listen, I would even came right here on my live and start shooting shots. Because listen, let me tell you something. Your haters going to watch you. Oh my. Listen, haters going to watch you. Because why? They got some language that's coming out of them. That's not necessary. That's not completely verbal. They got some language that's coming out of their heart that says that they're defiled, that says they're corrupted. So your haters are going to watch you because they're defiled. They're corrupted spiritually and they need to be dealt with. They need some spiritual healing. They need some spiritual food. They need some spiritual power to shift and shake the foundation of the demons that's causing them to operate contrarily to the divine design and plan that God ordained through his son, Jesus Christ. So listen, understand something. Your haters are watching you. They're watching what you do. They're watching your movement. Why? Because in their heart, they got issues. They got jealousy. They got envy. They got hatred. And let me tell you something, like, people, when you down and out and you low, people will love it. People will, I speak encouragement. But baby, start shifting up. Start booting up to the next level. You gonna start see some people fall off. Listen, you gonna catch some little in your window comments. You gonna catch some toxic activity and behavior. My God, once you start leveling up. Listen, God brought me out of some deep, dark situation. And I'm telling you, some of the folk that was on the cheerleading team and that was cool with me, they fell off. Why? Because God started elevating me. But listen, them people could do what they want to do. Because listen, I'll tell you, I paid for this oil. And listen, sometimes you got to pay for that oil. And people don't realize, like, they look at where you are, they don't realize how much that oil costs. Like, this oil cost is deep. Oh, Basa. Oh, listen, you might lose your mind trying to walk in my shoes. Listen, you may go crazy trying to be in my shoes. But you looking at where God has elevated me to, but not realizing, like, listen, he had to break me. He had to take me through some stuff. Listen, he had to bring me to a place where I had nothing and I was down and out and I was starving and I didn't even know how the next step was going to come. I didn't even know what the next move was going to be. Let me tell you something. I sat in my mother's garage and I kept hearing God tell me, he said, listen, I'm going to raise you up out of here. Now, mind you, God had blessed me before. He blessed me with some things and everything crashed. I lost everything. And God just kept saying, hey, man, I'm going to take you up out of this. I'm going to bring you out of this. And I kept hearing God say that for 4 years. And it wasn't until the 5th year that the shift began to come. And certain things that I was looking for started happening. But I was trying and trying. Every door got closed. I tried this business. That door got closed. I tried that business. That door got closed. I tried moving here. That door got closed. And let me tell you something. Even after you've been through all that, when you try to go and make a move, after you've seen the door close in your face, it ain't easy to muster up the strength to say, hey, I'm going to keep going forward because I believe it's going to happen. No, baby, that's when the oil kick in. That's when the power of God kick into you. That's when you realize that you're more than a conqueror. That's when you realize that on this journey that God has been strengthening you, because in spite of all the doors that closed on me, all the people that doubted me, I still was able to stand up and jump out on faith. But this time when I stepped out, the door opened. This time when I stepped out, the provision was made. This time when I stepped out, my finances began to come into order. when in past times it would fall apart. And I had to realize that it was God that brought me through it. It was God that was testing me. It was God that was building me. So listen, now when challenges come, I'm built up. And my wife asks me sometimes like, goodness, does anything bother you? And I say, no, listen, I done been through some stuff. Listen, I've been stripped. I've been broken. I've been talked about. People have tried to call law enforcement on me and falsely accuse me. But listen, I stood through it. So I know how to take the darts. I know how to fight the fight. And listen, the problem with some of us is really you don't need money. You don't need people. You need to learn how to use your weapons and use your tools and stand up and fight. And listen, that's what God is showing some of us. That listen, you already got what you need inside of you. But listen, sometimes you got to learn how to fight. Just like the little dilemma with the people and my spouse. I'm like, you know what? I could strike back. I could go back. But baby, you wasting energy. You wasting negativity. That's a spirit that's pulling at you that want to draw you back into something. That want to plant things into your heart. So guess what? It's going to come out of you. And that's why them people are moving that way. That's why they doing those things to you. Why? Because the enemy want to plant something in your heart. Because he know if he plants something in your heart, he can defile you. And that's the worst thing that can happen to you in this season. I'm prophesying to somebody. It's for you to be defiled. Because you need to be pure in this season. You need to be into alignment in this season. Because let me tell you something. The words say that Satan is an accuser. He's an accuser. He accuses us. He goes before God in the high court of heaven and accuses us. And listen, when we have open doors, when we have unresolved issues, sometimes we can't catch a breakthrough. But listen, like we're defiled spiritually, we're not into alignment. So what I'm saying to you today is like, listen, like watch yourself. Examine yourself. Understand where you are spiritually. Understand where you are on your journey. Understand where you are in this walk. And also understand the process that God is taking you through. Understand the people that are around you. And know that, listen, it's not what goes into a man that defiles them. It's what comes out of them. So watch your behavior. Watch your language. Because listen, the Bible says that the tongue being the smallest organ of the body is the most powerful. Oh my God, listen. I know some folk that done talk some stuff and said some stuff to some people and started whole wars, started whole family wars. I know one joker that done told another joker something and caused a whole crowd of people to hate that one person. Why? Because in their heart, you got some stuff. Yep. In their heart is some stuff. So we got to be mindful, beloved, like of our heart and of our, in us on the spiritual journey. Like, we want to be right. We want to be alignment. We in alignment. We want to be in a place, of spiritual liberty and freedom. We want to be in a place of positivity. We won't want to be in negativity. We don't want negative doors open. We don't want to be accused. We want to be positive. We want to demonstrate growth. We want to demonstrate success. And this is the divine plan that the Father has outlined for us. And listen, this is why he tells us these things. This is why his word warns us of these things. And listen, I've learned that when I was in a season when I didn't care about those things, it was so much more warfare. But listen, when I begin to articulate them and examine these things and think about these things and even thinking about what I would say, because listen, I'm the type of person, I'm going to say whatever come out my mouth. Whatever come to my, listen, I used to be the type of guy, whatever come to my brain, I'm going to tell you straight up. But listen, I've learned to tame my tongue. I've learned to watch the energy that comes out of me. Because listen, I know myself, I can be critical. Like, listen, I struggle with that too. I can be very judgmental and critical, but listen, I realize like that comes from a culture of how I was raised, like even my grandmother and her brothers, like they were very critical people. They were critical. My grandmother and like her brother who was a bishop, man, that joker was the most critical man I've ever met. But, I understand where he was coming from. I understand the culture that he was, what I'm saying, that he was in. But he was very, very critical. And I realized, like, you got to watch that too. Like, some things are imparted to us. Some of them good, some of them not so good. So I realized that, like, I had that in my spirit too. I was extremely critical. You know, my mother's uncle, very critical. My grandmother, she was critical, but I realized like they were critical because they were coming up during a certain time, you know, and they had to be critical, you know. So again, we got to be mindful. We got to be watchful because we want to grow. We want to make an impact. You know, we want to be better. We want to be better believers. You know, we want to be effective at what we do. You know, we want to be effectual in, you know, our stance as believers because other people are watching us. They're watching our walk. You know, they're watching our tone. They're watching our language. And you'll be surprised who's really watching you and feeding off of you. You know, you'll be surprised who really look up to you. They may not tell you it specifically, but you'll be surprised. So, you know, just some things that you got to be mindful of on your spiritual journey. So that's a nugget for today. I pray that these broadcasts help somebody, that you know that you get some of this in your spirit, because you know it'll give you breakthrough, spiritual breakthrough. And listen, I pray that you come into a place of peace, and that you know you find your place of peace. And listen, sometimes all we really need is just to be in a place of peace where we can focus and make decisions, you know, and start moving in the right direction. Listen, some of us, we talk too much. We too much on the phone. We too much on social media. Listen, find your place of peace. Find your niche. It's there. It's there and it's waiting on you. You just got to posture yourself. So, beloved, have a blessed Sunday. If you want to reach us, like, you can just go through the broadcast. If you want to Cash App us, you know, and support the ministry, because we're trying to move forward. You know, we're trying to do some things because people need to be reached. You know, people need to hear these type of messages. People need to be encouraged. You know, and listen, I'm not just all church and religion, but listen, I like to come with real perspective, you know, with a spiritual background, with a dose of spirituality. You know, so that's my niche. That's what God has given me. That's the gift He's given me. He's given me spiritual eyes. So, you know, I like to use my gift. I'm learning to share my gift, you know, because I've been an introvert my whole life, you know, but I'm learning. I'm learning to open up a little bit more. I'm learning that, you know, it's a growing process. And listen, also don't forget about the prayer line. The prayer line be hot fire. So, you know, you can reach us in one of those ways, one of those dimensions. You know, go to my YouTube page, Lion Roar Ferguson. You know, like and subscribe. Check out some of the videos. I'm going to be doing some more videos. So, beloved, again, y'all have a blessed Sunday. And we'll see you again very soon.